Welcome back, and in this lesson we need to create another array that's actually going to hold the tiles that are flipped over, so we'll call it tile flipped over. So basically, as the tiles are flipped over, we're going to add them into this array, and that's going to give us the ability to make sure that we can do a quick check to make sure that we're not actually picking up any of the tiles that are flipped over. I'm going to get rid of a lot of this console log stuff, and just to clean up the code a bit. So we're going to continue to work on that pick card function, and basically whenever I flip something over, I want to add it into the tile flipped over array. So I'm going to use the push method in order to do that, and what I wanted to add in is I want to add in that TID value. So every time we flip a card over, we're going to add it into this TID value. So this basically is going to give us an array of the tiles that are flipped over. And this is also going to give us the ability to check to see if a value is in the array using the index. And if it's already in the array, then we know that we're not going to initiate, and we're going to continue the rest of this functionality. So this is also going to give us the ability to to eliminate this one, just to make sure that if it's already flipped over, then we're not going to click it again. We're not going to have the ability to click it again. So that's going to clean up that part as well a little bit. So we need to put a condition to here to see if it's in the array, and if it's not, so we'll just see if it's not in. So we're going to create a function called inArray. So if it's not in array, then we're gonna initiate this. So we're gonna go ahead and run code. Not in array. And maybe we can do the else to say console log in array. So that way we can detect to see if a value is in the array or not in the array. So that basically means one more function. And this is another useful function like the shuffling, where we can easily see if a value is in an array, and then we return back the results. So we're just going to pass through a value to check to see if it's in the array. And this is where we're going to use the built-in method index of. So let's go out into our console. I'll show you how this works. I'm just looking back and seeing what my arrays are. So we've got the tile image going into here, and we know that if we do tile array, and we can do index of, so the method is index of tile array, and this is where we can check a value. And we see that we get back -1. So let's output the tile. We'll output tile array. So we don't actually have anything in there. So the other tile images is the one that has stuff in it. So refresh, start the game. Tile images, and we can see that we've got a bunch of stuff in there. So now let's try out tile images, and we'll do index of, and we're going to check to see if a value is present. So let's first we'll pick one that's actually there, and I'll show you what happens, or maybe we should pick one that's further in, so we get a better illustration of how this built-in method works. So basically we can return back the index value of any item within an array. So we see that when we do index of, we return back 2 because this is 0, 1, 2, so its index value is 2. And we could do this for any one of the values here. So if we want to get this one, the index value is 4. So this is how we can find out if an item is in an array, and if we pick a value that actually doesn't exist, we're always going to return back -1. So basically this tells us if a value is present in the array. So this is our way to check to see if something is included in the array, and going to be consistent with what we did earlier with the shuffle, I usually like to create these dynamic functions that you could use at any time. So what I want you to do now is pause the video, open up your editor, and try it out for yourself. Try to return back index values of several items in the array, and also try to return back values of ones that aren't in the array and see the difference. Practice index of, and coming up I'll show you how we're going to implement it within our solution. So I hope you had a chance to practice that, because this is an important value to try out. We're going to update this to be is in array. So we're passing over a value, and basically what we can do is we can do this all within one function. So this is array. We need to pass over that array as well. So this result is index of, and this is where we place the value. So index of, and we're going to check to see if it's greater than 1. So this way we're going to get a true or a false being returned. So we need to pass two parameters. We need to pass a value and the array value. So this is where we can use this function, and we can pass the value of the array. So the array that we're going to be building out is going to be called tiles flipped over. So the value that we're looking for is going to be the TID value, because this is what we're going to track within that tile flipped over array. So we know that if it's in the array or if it's not in the array, and then we can proceed with the rest of the functionality. So let's take this out, and we're going to wrap all what we've been doing here within this basic functionality. Clean it up a little bit. So Atom has extensions that you can add in. So this will allow for that. I can remove out this part here because we're not going to have to check to see if it's flipped over, because if something is flipped over, then we're automatically going to add it in the array. And we can also even clean this up even more, because we can even take that out into another function here, because we're repeating some of this code here. So let's create another function, and we'll call it card flip function. And we need to pass a parameter there, so it looks like it's t that we're going to be passing in there. So basically what's going to happen is whenever we flip the card, this is what we're going to be doing, and then we're going to be adding it also into our tile flipped over array. So we're pushing that ID in there, and then over here we're checking it. So let's just do this one here. So this is actually going to flip the card, and we can remove, I don't want to remove too much, but we see we're doing the same thing over here as well. So cleaning up the code a little bit, always a good idea. I'm going to get rid of some of this commenting out as well. So let's see how that works. So now when we start it, we place, oh, looks like we've got an error. So tile index is not defined. And let's go back over here. And we do need to pass that tile index as well. So this is another value that we need to pass in, that flipped. So we call it TI, just to keep it nice and short. So TI, and this needs to be tile index. And I should put the TI on the other end where we're receiving it. So this is going to be TI, and this is TI. And then the tile array is global, so we don't have to worry about that. So let's hit start. And it looks like it's working. So both are not in the array. If we click ones that are already open and flipped, then they're going to be in the array. And this is also where we can store additional data. So now we know that we're not going to flip over anything that's already flipped over. We're not going to try to flip it again. So basically, that tells us what's turned over and what's not turned over. And it's also going to give us a way to identify it, because we can identify it by ID, and we can flip the source whenever we want to flip the cards back. So this is a key point within this application where we need to include this information. So now, next lesson, let's finish up our check here to see if both of those cards are flipped over, and we've got our second card value here. We can also know that we're going to have two of the last cards here are going to be the ones that were just recently flipped over. So we can do a check within that format as well. So I'll show you how to do that coming up.